welcome to today's podcast. It's good to have you all with us as you listen to this podcast. I'm privileged to have Dr. Duncan Green with me. Now, he's not a doctor in theology. Maybe that's a good thing. He's a veterinarian, and it's good to have him with me. I think we've known each other for about 20 years now, if I'm not mistaken. More than 20 years, I think. What got me to the point of having this podcast with Duncan is a conversation that we had on Tuesday, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And I was so taken in by what he had to say, what we spoke about on the phone, that I phoned him on Wednesday and I said to him, listen, we need to talk. We need to put this on video at least, or do a podcast to do something about this. So I really, really do believe that this testimony that he's going to give today is extremely important for the time that we are living in, specifically now. I'm not going to give anything away, and we're not going to give anything away as we just introduce him, but I hope that it will really be a blessing to you, as it's been a blessing to me to hear this. All right, so let me start off. Duncan, welcome. Good to have you with us.
Thank you.
So what I want to do and want to start off with is, if you can start off by just telling the listeners something about yourself.
Right. It's good to be here, Joppie. Well, I was born and bred in the Republic, born in Pretoria, and in a very Afrikaans home. I've got a very Scottish name and surname, but very much Afrikaans in the way that I was brought up. I grew up as a kid, just crazy about sport. I wanted to be Graham Pollock. I wanted to be like Gert Small. Probably terms for nowadays would be A.B. de Villiers and Siya Kolisi. I wanted to do those things, and then never turned out to be good enough to play at that level. But I was privileged enough to be at Twickenham once when the Boks were playing there, and cried when I sang the anthem. So I school in Pretoria, ended up finishing in the early 90s, just as our country was going through significant transition. Started university in 94, did the veterinary degree at University of Pretoria, qualified in 1999, and started working. I very soon after qualifying, I met my wife, wonderful woman, and we got married soon after. And it's sort of at that time, just sort of, I think we were married for about 2 or 3 years. We decided to move to England. I had a job opportunity there, opportunity to do some further work, some studies. Took the opportunity. We went for 2 years and stayed for 14, and came back towards the end of 2018. We left with 2 backpacks, and we arrived back in South Africa with 8 huge cases, 3 children in a container on a ship. So our kids are very much third culture British Saffers. They are something in between South African and British. They enjoy South Africa a great deal. Here we are.
Oh, lovely, especially the sunshine, eh?
Sunshine is a good thing. The boys are never indoors.
All right, tell us something about your spiritual journey. I think that's where we want to get to. We want to get to your spiritual journey, and then we get to the testimony after that. But the spiritual journey up to the point where we are now. All right. So you don't reveal anything about where we are going, just your spiritual journey up to there.
All right. Well, grew up in a family where your parents bank at Volkskas and they vote for the National Party. And then that means that you automatically attend the Dutch Reformed Church. So I did. And Sundays were not much fun. You ended up having to sit still for an inordinate length of time inside the church building. And then when all was said and done, then you had to mosey out and sign up for another hour of Sunday school. And then after that, you were released to go back home. And then there was this eerie silence in the neighborhood, or at least ours, that only sort of around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, things started to become more normal again. And cricket was allowed again. So we were allowed to do stuff outside and make noise and play and do that. So it was a very traditional Afrikaans way of doing things. Went through all that, gave all the right answers, was confirmed in the church, age 18. And then my life changed in 1997. I was with an outreach at Tux to a rural settlement in Mangweni near Malalan, in Mpumalanga. And at that, or during that outreach, the Lord literally turned my world upside down. I thought I was something that I clearly was not. I met a man there, Sam Sitole, who was just a big influence in my life. Local teacher and elder in the church, incredible man. Suffered with polio when he was a boy, so he wears braces and crutches to get along. But joyful, never complains, just a wonderful man. And for the first time, the Bible actually made sense. I would open it and it would be like this thing became alive. And it was a big thing. And I tried to find a spiritual home after that. So attended various churches, Levende Woord, some of the Hatfield campus in Pretoria North that some of the students attended. I was at NG Morletta Park a few times. Then whilst we were in the UK, there was a Baptist church, Queen's Road Baptist Church in Ramsgate. The original Ramsgate is not in Natal. The original Ramsgate is in Kent, Northeast England. So attended Queen's Road Baptist, then went to a new Anglican church. Never ever really satisfied. And then ended up at Barton Church. Barton Church is in Canterbury in England. At the time pastored by Eric Harmer and Oz Power, and wonderful place. I think I developed a connection very quickly. The church was very much Bible teaching, expository preaching, outwardly focused. It was a church with involvement in many missionaries' lives. So we as a family grew an awful lot there spiritually. I forgot to say when I met you. I met Yapi just as I met my wife at a Centurion Christian congregation. It was an independent evangelical church in the Centurion region. That's where I met Yapi. He was an assistant pastor or a consulting pastor, I think. I think if I have to say who the people were that has had the most influence in my life on a spiritual level, then Eric Harmer, Oz Power, John MacArthur, Bodie Bacham, and then you, Pastor van Kampen,
Aye.
discipled me and have taught me things, have guided me, and then I hit a horrible point in my life at around 2013. And eventually I was diagnosed with severe burnout. I was off work for about 3 months. Terrible point. Fell into a horrible state of depression. Not a nice place to be at all. Then some men in that church stood up and stood alongside me, helped me to work through certain things. Yapi did so remotely in a virtual capacity. But Eric and Oz and a retired MAF pilot, Mr. Max Gove, became my mentor. And through them, I managed to work through a horrible place in my life, and turned my Christian crawl back into a walk. And so that's in short where we ended up just before Tuesday.
Well, in the meantime, you came back from England to South Africa. Was it last year now?
2018.
October. Oh, time flies, eh? So you came back in 2018, and you're back in South Africa again. And now, I think we need to jump the gun and get to Tuesday's call. What a WhatsApp call we had. So I think jump right into it and let's get the depth of it. All right.
This is a tricky subject to broach without stepping on some rather large and significant toes. So I'm going to try to not do that and do it in just the way that it happened.
Okay.
So lockdown has been a bit tough on us as a family. I've been out of work since beginning of March. So it's not been an easy ride since the virus hit, and I was busy just taking a break from work I was doing, and I was looking at just looking for a quick YouTube video just for a bit of a break, and mine is populated with rugby and cricket and Ravis Rayas, and then a bit more rugby and some fishing as well. So, and then I scrolled past something where there was a notice about a pastor preaching on why his church does not use music from Bethel Church and Hillsongs Church and Elevation Church anymore. Now, if you are within the realms of worship, Christian music, those are three enormous names or groups within Christian music. And I was a bit perturbed, didn't quite know why. And then looked at a few things and eventually looked at an interview with one of the people that were part of Bethel, arguably more on the side of the Supernatural School of Ministry, not so much the music, but the interview was quite something. And during that, she alluded to watching a film, American Gospel by Brandon Kimber, and Transition Studios. And I went onto Vimeo and I bought it to watch it because I saw the trailer, and the trailer looked really interesting. And then it turned out to be 2 hours and 20 minutes of absolute jaw-dropping teaching and revelation. Not revelation in the sense of some secret things revealed, but more a revealing of the Word of Faith movement, and what some of the things have been going on for I think a great number of years within the movement, where that has now taken them, and to where they stand at this point in time. And it is very much in the same as the old analogy of a ship deviating off course by 1 degree. Initially, the change is small, but eventually the consequence of such a small deviation can be quite dramatic.
Yeah.
And over time, that certainly has happened with them. The Word of Faith movement was basically not derided, not taunted and mocked. It was basically placed alongside truth, and just that. The error and the truth, the error and the truth, for 2 hours and 20 minutes. It just was astounding to watch. And I was exposed to this movement around the early 2000s. Yapi and I had some conversations about that, and I realized very quickly that fundamentally I was opposed to the way that things were taught. The basis of it was something that I could not agree with. So I also saw the impact of the movement in people's lives, friends and family that were severely affected by some of the rubbish that comes from there. Especially in some places, the poorest of the poor are the ones that are usually affected most by this organization and this movement. So, saying that, as I watched American Gospel, I realized that I was actually seeing a lot of myself in what was being shown. I saw that a lot of what happened to me in 2013 was a slow conformation to the effects that the Word of Faith movement has had on mainstream evangelicalism. The biggest realization I had was that one of the biggest reasons for me ending up literally on the rocks in 2013 is because I started to move the focus of the Bible and the gospel from Jesus Christ to me. All of a sudden, I was I was David in the story, praying for a good aim that day. I was praying, I was being Joshua, trusting the Lord for a huge breakthrough in my difficult business situations. I opened the business just before the 2008 financial decline, the global financial decline, so it was not a fun time. But I was seeing myself as Joshua. I was seeing myself as all these characters in the Bible, and forgetting that it was not that. And faith became something that I needed to be very, very good at in order to get the mountains that were in my life, to get them out the way, to get them moved. And it turned into a spiral. And looking back at it now, I can see what kind of an effect it had. I had all these problems and difficult situations, and I tried fixing them by listening to more sermons. But if you have access to the kind of information that we have now, you're able to pick and choose the sermons from any teacher on the topics that you want to hear about.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any sermon by John MacArthur or Vody Bacham on trials and suffering that I have not yet listened to. And I started talking to other people, and there would be these little bits of advice on how to fix your situation. I ended up praying the same thing over and over and over again, as if I needed to twist his arm into getting what I wanted. And I became completely disillusioned with the complete and utter futility of what I was busy with, because nothing happened. And I think the thing that eventually happened is that I eventually, my wife is very angry with me about this, but I declared myself unblessable, because I was working on an outcome-based plan, and the outcomes were just not what I wanted. So the times that I were in worship was always the times I could connect to the Lord. I used to lead worship in many churches. Those were the times that it all was fine again, because I was focusing on Him and not on me, and those were the good times. But I eventually had to stop doing that because it felt so unreal. And if you would lead worship and then somebody preaches after that, then I think, because I then realized that I was not making it as the standard that they set with their sermons. I was just not even coming close. And what I thought was that it was because of my lack of obedience and my inability to meet the standard that these men of the Bible set, that was the reason why things were not working out in the way that I wanted them. And I think if you ask me in a purely cognitive sense, whether I would have listened to Benny Hinn or to Kenneth Copeland telling me to be obedient now and to send my £1,000 to their ministry and then trust the Lord for a miraculous outcome, I would have said that's never going to happen, because that is utterly false, and it is just not the way that the Lord works. But what I was doing is that I was following my version of this, and I created this where I said that if honesty and business integrity and being a really good clinical vet, and having ethical labor practices with the people that worked in my surgery, prayer, the sermons I listened to, if I was doing all that, then surely God was supposed to give me success in this world. And it wasn't there. And my wife dragged me kicking and screaming to Eric Harmer's office, and I sat there and I cried like a little baby, because I was completely and utterly exhausted. I just couldn't do it anymore. I was literally worn out in the true sense of the word. So, to conclude, I think Eric Harmer, Ozpower, you guys never taught materialism, prosperity. You cautioned against it. You counseled against it. I think the person I've listened to most sermons of would be John MacArthur. He's the complete antithesis of the Word of Faith movement. But the general evangelical movement has taken some of these things and have made it part of themselves. And a lot of this permeates the movement. And like me, I think a lot of people would cognitively denounce the movement, but would maybe unknowingly, inadvertently practice what they say in your life. And I realized that I became a consumer of the church and a consumer of the word, rather than a member and somebody that depends on the word for daily sustenance. And someone said that the problem with Christians is that we talk to ourselves too much. That we listen to ourselves too much and don't talk to ourselves enough. We listen to ourselves complaining and moaning, but we don't speak to ourselves the word of God, and we don't allow it to shape us for the reality of life as a Christian. Because reality of life as a Christian is completely different. And I think that's where I came up short. And I think had I done things differently, I think I could have saved myself and my family, I think a whole load of heartache. That's more or less what I said to Yopi on Tuesday.
What is so fascinating, Duncan, is the fact that so many times we do not realize that what we are actually busy with is a man-centered focus rather than a Christ-centered focus. While we think we are Christ-centered, in fact, we are not. While we think that, you know what, I am completely trusting God, I am actually trusting myself. And then this whole idea of, am I good enough? Am I doing well enough? It's actually the foundation of that kind of thinking is works-based salvation. Now, I'm not saying that people who are truly saved think that they're going to be saved by their works, but it's kind of a works-based can I please God enough that He will bless me through what I'm doing and my obedience and what I think I need to do to appease God? And that sounds so much like what people who are trying to appease the idols, in idol worship. It sounds so much like that. Where I think, you know what, if I just do the right thing at the right time, say the right thing, make the right move, God is going to move. And it's not true. That's not what the Bible teaches. So it's just amazing. I was so blessed by what you said, and I'm so glad what you were sharing. I hope that you will be open, so I'm going to throw you into the deep end now, and I hope you'll be open that we can continue the discussion, maybe not in the sense of having a testimony from your side, but maybe just touch on a few issues specifically with regards to that, because I think the idea is not to attack any movement. The idea is not to attack Christians, but rather to shine some light on the reality of this. And I've got no other word to say, but it's a man-centered focus on our religion, on our Christianity. It is so man-centered. And it comes from this postmodern world that we live in anyway, where everything is self-centered. It's all about me. It's about my life. It's about my wants. It's about my needs. It's about me instead of the glory of God. So would you be open that we can do this again and just kind of dig into some of the issues, because I think it's important that we touch some of these issues. Will you be open to that? So I'm putting you on the spot now.
Fire away.
All right. You know me by now that I kind of do this every now and then. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to close for now, and then God willing, we'll have a good discussion specifically on what has been shared now. I think it's very important. I think for believers today who might be caught up in the same thing, especially the time that we are living in now. After the lockdown, people are going through a very tough time financially. The world economy is in shambles. I think we are at the point where a lot of people, a lot of Christians are asking very much the same question you asked in 2013. And very much trying to do the same thing and asking God the same thing. Lord, but I've done all these things. Why haven't you blessed me? Why am I going through this tough time? Why have I lost my job? That kind of thing. And I think it's important for us, from a biblical perspective, to just kind of touch on these issues and give some biblical clarity on them. All right, so Duncan, thank you very, very much. Until next time, God willing. I love to use those words that James tells us to use. If it be God will and I'm alive and you are alive, we'll do this again. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for sharing and being open. I mean, it's not something that's easy to talk about, but thank you very much.
That's right. Thank you, Opie.
All right. God bless. Thank you for watching, and until next time, bye-bye.